Hello and welcome on this glorious day, this July day. My country, England, is experiencing a heat wave and there is beauty all around. I've just been to my allotment and noticed the things growing, and I can hear the sound of children outside playing. In the news today was over Ukraine. A Malaysian jet has apparently been shot down, and I would just like to make some comments to reiterate what I made a video a few months ago during the protests in Maidan Square. It wasn't then aware that the events would degenerate into a civil war, but I now wish to make some comments upon this matter. The international community was represented on that plane that was apparently shot down, flying at 30,000 feet. No doubt in the belief that they were flying so high that they could not be affected by the events on the ground. Just as when we watch television reports of the events taking place in Ukraine or Gaza, there is an Israeli invasion of Gaza taking place. The Ukrainian army supported by the West, are fighting rebels or terrorists, as they call them, who are supported by President Putin. It's instructive to see the different attitudes of the two sides to the events in Israel and Ukraine. There is no comment, hardly whatsoever, of Israel's invasion of a sovereign state of Gaza, and yet by the West. And yet we are firmly opposed to Moscow's attempt to support the rebels stroke terrorists in the east of the country. It's also instrumental to see how power politics manipulate the news. This downing of 300 members of the international community, immediately the rebels are blamed by the western side. The eastern side claim it's the West, and there's very little concern the reality of the fact that 300 people have lost their lives, and no doubt there will be damage limitation exercises conducted. If it turns out to be the Ukrainian government and not the rebels, it will be called a terrible mistake rather than aggression of the other side, out of control and so on, and the whole gamut of sophistry. So as far as I'm concerned, it really doesn't matter who shot down this plane. As I have said from the very beginning of this conflict, it is the West, a power bloc, and the East tearing apart a sovereign nation for their own ends and benefits. In my opinion, what is taking place is NATO is attempting to expand westwards, followed by the European Union, which is seeking to expand, and Russia is trying to expand westwards. And they're meeting in the middle of Ukraine, the borderland, as it has always been for hundreds of years. A place where these two power politics meet and innocent people lose their lives in the hundreds or the millions, as has been the case of history. What is happening, in my opinion? There is a rebel area which is being, in my opinion, drip-fed by armaments by Russia. Now, this rebel area is predominantly Russian-speaking people, and by the same rights as the West allows, its territories that it likes should be allowed to succeed if it chooses to. Why not? Of course, there's one rule for one and one for another, and the eastern region's desire to succeed has been declared as illegitimate by the West. On what basis, I do not know. However, it is clear that Russia is trying to expand westwards and is not overly concerned about the lives and affairs of the people of the Donetsk People's Republic, as it is so called. The Prime Minister is a man from Moscow, as is the defence man, a man called Igor Strelkov, and who has come from Moscow as well. What is happening is the Russians are drip-feeding the rebels just enough armaments to keep them from collapsing. the Ukrainian government forces are attacking eastwards and meeting with some success. In my opinion, the Ukrainian government are walking into a trap. The cities of Donetsk and Luhansk have 1.5 million people combined in them. President Putin is looking for any pretext to invade the country. He cannot do it straight away. However, if there's a humanitarian crisis, already Luhansk has had its water cut off. There will be reports in the news of chaos and people suffering from, there could be typhus, dysentery and whatever. This will give President Putin the pretext he needs to invade under the cover of a humanitarian operation in order to keep the two sides apart. He has no particular love of the rebels either. He doesn't wish the rebels to be running Donetsk. He wishes himself to be running Donetsk. And just as the West are expanding illegitimately, if NATO captures East Ukraine, it will be 200 miles away from Moscow as the panzer rolls. There is no doubt, given history and the fact that Russia controls 1/3 of the world's natural resources, that the West would dearly like to do its democratization process, as it has done in other nations that have many natural resources, in order to get its hands on them and use its superior capital in order to fund political parties in this so-called democratization process in order to expand eastward. And so I call upon you, people of this earth, to demonstrate against both Russia and the West and to end this conflict and this needless loss of life that is now involving the international community with the downing of this jet. Not that one member of the life of the international community should be worth more than a Russian or a Ukrainian. I ask you to write to your MP and to boycott and to do all that you can to stop this terrible events from proceeding. Thank you.